Hi, Shabbat Shalom, my friends, and welcome to another week of Torah study. How good it is to be together again. Before we move forward, I'd like to give a shout out to Bib and to Al in Florida, Bib and Al, who have been from the very beginning participants in our Torah studying community. A terrible tragedy befell their family, and we just wanted to say we love you guys and our prayers are with you. Okay, back to work. I need to apologize. I really didn't want to offend anyone. I hate to offend people, but it seems that my listing of the countries in which we have committed participants, I have regularly omitted South Africa. I'm sorry. I apologize from the Santa Monica Mountains to Table Mountain, a great mountain in South Africa. Sorry, you're on the list. We know you're with us, and we're grateful. Our Sedra today is Pinchas, but before we get to Pinchas, we need what might be called an excursus. An excursus is a little bit of a deviation, a little bit of a detour before we get to the main topic, but it is the kind of a detour which always leads back to the main topic. When you unroll a Sefer Torah, what is it that you don't see? What do you don't see? There are no vowels, no capital letters, no punctuation, no chapter breaks. This was not done, my friends, contrary to popular legend, just to make it more difficult for boys and girls approaching the age of 13 to learn how to chant Torah for their bar and bat mitzvah. We're really not all that mean. We didn't do it for that purpose. Hebrew is very much a consonantal language. The niceties of well-placed vowels was a relatively late development. In fact, it fell to a group of scholars who worked from the 6th to the 11th century to fix the vocalization. These scholars were known as the Masoretes, from the Hebrew word Masorah, Masar, transmission, handing down of a tradition. Then in the 13th century, the Archbishop of Canterbury is said to have given us a fixed text with fixed chapter breaks. And for that, we are all in his debt. But sometimes the Archbishop did things which even today are not fully understandable. Sometimes the chapter breaks are strange, almost inappropriate. But this is the text that we have, and we have learned to live with it, and this is the end of the excursus. But remember what I just said. Now, the Torah tells us the story of an Israelite notable who committed a sexual offense with a Midianite woman in the full view of many people. Then came Pinchas, the grandson of Aaron, the great-nephew of Moses, who was enraged by what he saw. He picked up his spear and killed both the man and the woman with one thrust. Wow, what happens next? What would you imagine? Our text tells us that a plague had been sent by God to punish the people for what had been a toxic mix of adultery and idolatry. Sounds nice. They're not good together. But when the man and the woman were killed by Pinchas, the plague stopped. 24,000 people had died. The plague stopped. And there's more. Was Pinchas then singled out by God for a rebuke of any kind? No, not at all. Listen to the text. God said that Pinchas has turned back my wrath by his passion, kano. Kina in Hebrew is very often translated as jealousy or zealotry, sometimes as passion. Therefore, God goes on, I grant him my Brit Shalom, my Pact of Shalom, for him and his descendants after him. God ends up by promising that for all time Pinchas and his descendants will be members of the Kahuna. They will be Kohanim. They will be priests forever because of the killing of those two sinners. Plus, and this is a very big plus, some rabbis even say that when the Messiah comes, a descendant of Pinchas will be given the privilege of making the public announcement that the Messiah has arrived. Not bad. Now, remember that excursus by which we began? Well, the first half of this story is told at the very end of last week's Sedra. And the second half is told at the beginning of this week's Sedra. It makes no sense. As a matter of fact, if you started studying this week, Numbers 25:10, you're in the middle of the story, you have no idea what's going on. But that's the way the Archbishop did it. So we have to straddle last week's end of portion, this week's beginning of the portion, to figure out what's going on. What do we have here? Jealousy for God, passion for God, zealotry for God, kina. It signifies it all. Pinchas was so certain of his view of the world, the correctness of his view of the world, that he killed to defend it. And in return, he received the most wonderful gift of all from God. Okay, it wasn't 72 virgins. Nevertheless, very good gift. Now, trust me, the rabbis struggled over this. And you already know the rule of biblical interpretation. If the rabbis offer many explanations for the same question within a biblical text, that is because they don't know what the right answer is. They offer a lot of reasons because they don't understand. Here's some of the reasons about Pinchas. 1, God was furious with the people. They might all have been consumed by the divine wrath. But Pinchas bravely ended that in a single piercing moment. He's a real hero. Or, the Israelite man had openly challenged Moses' authority. For that, he died, properly so. Or, Moses, when seeing Pinchas's rage, gave Pinchas a sign. Go for it. Then Pinchas exercised what he was told to do at great personal risk. He was a true hero. God bless him. Pinchas, great guy. Or, now this is the one that I really like. Pinchas was a Torah scholar. Now, forget the fact that it doesn't fit in with any time. He was a Torah scholar. He was a kunilam, a little guy, too weak to pick up a spear. It was clear that this kind of a man could never have succeeded in killing 2 people without God's help. God helped him do this. Clearly, it was the right thing. Or finally, you know that it's forbidden for someone who has killed a human being to offer up sacrifices as a Kohen. Cannot perform priestly functions. But in this case, God regarded what Pinchas had done as a sacrificial offering. An act of zealotry was accepted by God as a sacred gift. Might I share with you privately, Benina, just between the two of us and maybe 700, 800 other people who happen to be listening in, that this passage, in all of its many explanations, leaves me really uneasy. Now, my wife, Risa, is known as a very passionate woman, fighting hard in various significant circles for the strengthening of Jewish life and practice and for the rights and position of women in our community, in our lives. The women of Reformed Judaism have called Risa a force of nature, passionate. I've also been known to be a person with a certain very few passionate commitments. I will fight for my people, for the state of Israel, for social justice, environmental and political sanity. And okay, I don't do any of that quietly, and I suspect that many of you are quite the same. But there is a line, is there not, between passionately defending a core value and allowing intense passion to become murderous rage. ISIS operates with murderous rage that is said to flow out of a profoundly held, passionate, religious commitment. Palestinian communities elevate suicide bombers to the status of religious martyrs, name public squares after them, killing innocents in the name of God. Wars are fought in ways that portray the enemy as the ultimate expression of evil and then portrays us usually as the good guys, the side acting as the defenders of truth. When, my friends, is picking up that spear an act of morality? And when is picking up that spear an act of murderous terrorism? I can't offer easy answers here, but I can state with absolute certainty that we had better, as a community, as a society, begin to engage in that conversation about what really are our ethical values, what really are our religious standards. Not every result can be used to justify every means. Not every passion can be allowed to burst forth into the destroying of human life. Not every view of the world can give us the license to demonize others, because demonization perhaps verbal, written at first, quickly enough moves some people to horrific acts. Already has happened. So Pinchas is a hero. He's a Kohen, an exemplar for some, but his behavior frightens me. Perhaps, my friends, we should have some better role models. Perhaps we had better start figuring out what kind of role models we really want. Well, that's it for this week. Have a great Shabbat. Please remember to share. Hit that. Share. Have a great Shabbat. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.